Hello, everybody. My name is Frank DeLise, product management at Autodesk in the game technology group. So my focus is purely games, FBX, middleware, all cool stuff around game development and Autodesk tools. So one of the goals I wanted to show off this year is just really what FBX is about and how it can really help improve the whole art to engine workflow. All right, so we're putting a lot of effort in making it better and better to really get everything you want out of the game engine or in the DCC tools into a game engine. So what is FBX? FBX is really a file format that's used for interop between Max and Maya and Autodesk and DCC tools. And more we've seen game developers pick up that format and use it as a way to get content out of these tools. So we started putting a lot more effort into it and making that kind of more of a de facto standard as getting content out of Max and Maya and Autodesk even and getting it into a game engine. So, but we already see this format is really growing out of a format and actually growing more into a tool that links art to an engine. So that means that we're going to do a lot more work on not just getting the content out, but getting that content to be linked to the engine itself and doing more live create type stuff. And that's really where I see the future of FBX. So you'll see us doing a lot more work on FBX over time. So, but today I want to show you a little bit about, yesterday I showed a bit about Maya getting into UDK, and today I want to show getting some more Max content into UDK and explain more advanced techniques with FBX and for both weapons, vehicles, characters, cloth. Some of the stuff you might have seen yesterday, the buggy. I'll show a little bit of that again today, but I'll show you some other stuff as well. So my background, I started Autodesk in '95, and I was one of the designers of 3D Studio Max, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I left and went to game development. And I started off by creating a mod called Desert Combat, which was basically a Battlefield 1942 mod where I took all of World War II and converted it into modern warfare. So I was kind of an artist and really got into that. How do I get stuff out of the engine and make something in for? So I had to write my own export. There was no tools at that point, right? So I was writing my own exporters, and so I wish I had tools like FBX then, right? There was no way. I had to figure out what's the vertice, what's the UV map, and trying to get it all out into that engine. So after creating Desert Combat, I started a studio and worked on Battlefield 2 with DICE. Created a studio called Chaos, where I did Frontlines and eventually Homefront. I'm in the industry a while, and then I came back to Autodesk because they're really showing that passion towards game development, and it's a good opportunity to get in there now and bring that things that I've learned and help Autodesk go to that next step for game development. So today I'm going to start with I'll start by doing just a little bit of animation, showing how you can get some animated content directly into the UDK. So I'm going to start up by going to Max here and bring up a radar station. So I'm going to load up this radar station. It's like kind of like a little mini radar. I don't know what you call it, but the little vehicle that's got radar on it. And basically, what I want to do is I want to have this asset that's going to come into the Unreal and animate the tower on top of it. Now, there's two types of meshes you have in the UDK, which is static meshes and skeletal meshes. Static meshes being used mostly for building, static objects, rocks, those kind of things. And skeletal meshes, which is good for animated geometry. Either it be this radar station or a character or a weapon. Anything that's got a bone in it is going to be a skeletal mesh. So yesterday I kind of showed more of the static mesh stuff, and today I'm going to show you more about skeletal meshes in general. So here I've got this kind of radar object, and I want that tower to kind of spin and animate in-game as an asset. So I want to actually skin this object and put a bone and tell it what part of that radar station is going to rotate. So to do that, I'm going to create a skeleton for this object. So I'm going to go to the top view here and just kind of create a dummy box. So I'll go and say create a dummy. And I'll center it in the world. And I'll just move it up just a little bit. Just kind of get it off the ground. And I'm going to call this the root bone of this object. So I'm going to set up, again, a skeleton for it. And now I want to create a bone that's going to rotate the dish up top. So I'm going to create another dummy box and call this the radar bone. And I'm going to align this object to that top piece there. So I'm just going to go and say align that dummy object with the radar piece up top. And I'll tell to align to the center of the object and match it up. So now I've got like a kind of a basic skeleton. I like using dummy boxes instead of bones. It gives you more shape and easier things to grab sometimes. So I like using dummy boxes a lot for bones. You'll notice that. So I'm going to actually then link the helper objects here. I'm just going to link the radar here, top piece, to the bottom. Because it needs to be a complete skeleton to really work. It's all got to link back to one root bone for it to really see it as a skeleton. And now I just need to skin this up. So I'm just going to go back to the object now and skin it. So I'll go to the skin modifier and add both the just the root bone in this case. Let me turn off select children here. I'll get the root. I also see that the tires are separate objects, so I'm going to make sure those are also skinned to the root. And I'll go to the root object here. And then I just need to take this top piece, this radar dish part, and also skin that to the top bone. And by doing things as separate pieces like this, it makes it really easy to select what you're working on instead of trying to select by elements and do skinning. Because if it's only one bone, skin will automatically skin the whole object to that one bone, making it a lot easier. So I'm going to go here to the root of this root bone here, and the radar bone here. So if I rotate it, it's rotating the proper way. That's good. If I rotate the whole thing, it's all rotating properly. That's good. So I'm all skinned up properly here. So I'm just going to go to the animation key here and just go auto keyframe and select this top bone here and just kind of rotate it around until I'm about a little under 360 degrees. So it gives me a nice loop here. So now if I play it, it's going to rotate, but it's got a kind of an ease in and ease out on it. So I can go to the track view and just grab that keyframe and set it to be straight in instead of easing. And I can do the same thing out, set that to be straight out. So I'll get a straight rotation where there's no easing involved. So now it's got a constant loop of the radar dish just rotating. So now I've got my basic object, basic animation going. I want to bring this in with FBX. So one thing I want to do, though, is with FBX, it's pretty cool. It will handle, I'll show you some of the options, but if I go to export here, you can export this whole object as as a single mesh with animation. So I'm just go to MIGS test files. So I'm going to do radar dish 2, I'll call it here. So it's running export options. You can pick the FBX format. And you can export the smoothing, and you can convert any of the dummies into bones if they're skinned. Export animation. And you can also even bake animation, where it'll bake the keyframes for you into individual samples. But in this case, I like baking in Max because then I have control over the exact keyframes and what they do. But if I bake it, I can bake it all out into the FBX file. But in this case, I'm going to bake it all into keyframes. And then in UDK, I can actually reduce those keyframes if I want in UDK. This way, I always have the raw data. Having every keyframe is going to have a sample on it. So before I export it, I'm just going to go to the Motion tab. And I can set here, it says, well, start time is 0 to 100 samples. I want 100 samples. I want to give me a keyframe for every frame. So I've got a sample every way. And then from there, I can always reduce and make it less samples later on. So I'm just going to go bake this now. So it's all collapsed. Now you can see I've got a keyframe in the bottom for every single frame. So I'm good. And now I'm just going to export that out as radar dish 2. And I'm going to leave all the settings alone. They look pretty good. And you can set, if this is for a 2012 release or for 2011 release, you can set it to whatever version you want. And you also turn on things like to want to export cameras and lights. And usually I leave all that stuff alone. You can export it all because the files are pretty decent in size, so you don't have to worry about turning stuff off. And again, the nice thing about this file is now I can load that in Maya, I can load it in Optimage, I can load it in Max, you can load it in any of the tools, and it'll be the same data across all the packages. So I'll export that out. And I'm going to launch my UDK. And here I'm going to import this object. And again, what's cool about FBX importer, we work really close with Epic on FBX. So you'll see, like, even if you follow the UDK, every month, new fixes, new changes, new additions. And we're adding a lot of interesting stuff coming up for FBX and the UDK. So you'll see a lot of progress from us there. So if I go in here and go to import, I can import that now and go to, I'll go grab this file here from the radar folder. And I import it, I can set it what I want to call it, so I'll call this radar dish package. And I'll call it radar dish is fine, just call it radar. And it automatically knows, since it has a skeleton on it, automatically defaults the import option to skeleton mesh, because it knows it has bones on it. You can just say bring it as a static mesh instead. You can set, do I want to bring in morph targets? No, but I do want animations, so I have that checked. I want to bring in the animation. And you can do animations a couple different ways. With FBX, you can bring in just the skeleton mesh the way it is, but if you do import animations, it'll actually create a new animation set and populate it with all the animation. Or you can bring in the skeleton mesh, create a brand new animation set, and do import in the animation set FBX animation, and pick a file and grab animation from it only, without the mesh. So you can kind of build out a whole animation set without trying to get it individually from the object. It's pretty cool. But in this case, since there's one object with one animation, I'm going to import them both at the same time. So I'm going to grab all that stuff. I don't really need a T-pose, not a character. I can say I want to import the material and textures for the object, and say OK. I have one of my textures, not a power 2, but in this case, not a big deal. So it will actually create the new package, bring in the skeleton mesh radar, import the animations, create an animation set for the animation that I found. An animation set, actually animation name will be the name of the root bone. So whatever the root bone is, it'll probably call the animation root, which it did. So I created an animation set called root. So that's so important. If you want to name it a certain way, you can do that from within the file. So if I actually bring up the skeleton mesh now, you can see it brought the skeleton mesh over with my materials on it. I didn't put a texture for the tires, so it didn't know what to do with that. So I can just create a quick color for that in the editor. So I have a quick object on it. It's got nothing really on it going on, but I can go to the animation sequence and pick the root animation. And I should start seeing it rotate. So it brought in that animation. I can assign the animation set to the object and see it rotating right in the view here. But if I want to place this in the world, it's not going to do anything. It doesn't know how to associate that animation with the object. So you have to actually set that up, because they are two things. It's a skeleton mesh and an animation. The reason why they're separate is because you can have a lot of different animations used, and which one does it use? So you got to be specific at what you want it to play. So I'm just going to drop this in the world. Those tires are bugging me, so I'll make a little black color there. I didn't name all my objects right there, though, so I don't know if I'll be able to get to it easily, but there it is. So I'll go to tires, the tires material, get rid of this black. I got a regular diffuse color here. I'll also make it all 0. Give me some black tires. That should be good. All right, so now I'm going to place this object in the world. So I'm going to get back to my scale mesh here. Grab it, drag it into the world here, scale it up a bunch. Oops. Now, if I just play it, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to sit still because I didn't assign the animation. I'll just play real quick. So there's just sitting there with no animation on it. But if I go to the object itself and go to the properties of the object, I can get to, it says, well, what's the animation name that I want to play? So under skeleton mesh component, there is an animations drop-down. And here you can say, what's the sequence name I want to play? So I don't remember what it was, so I'll just go look at the animation set. Back to animation sets here and look at the root. And inside that animation set, there's a bunch of animations that I can either import or what was imported directly from Max. And it's called Radar Dish 2. So I'm going to use the Radar Dish 2 name. I'm going to say, what's the rate? I can adjust how fast it's playing. I said, yes, I want it to play. Yes, I want it to loop. But now it doesn't know which animation set it is, because I can always have different animation sets besides the actual animation to play. So you do have to go here and say animation set. I will want to use the one that I created here. So I've got my animation set assigned. So now if I go play from here, I should have my nice little radar dish here moving around. So pretty straightforward. You can create animated objects this way, you know, in your levels, which is pretty cool. Gives you some motion and life to the world. Any questions on this so far? All right, pretty simple. All right, so another thing I want to show is a bit of characters. So I did this little prototype with some bunch of characters, and I'm going to show you one of these real quick here. Oops. I'll open up in a Max here first. So I'm going to go to Soldier Run here. Soldier, skinned. Okay. So here, I wanted to get a character in game, but I wanted it to be compatible with what the UDK ships with. So I was like, oh man, am I going to match all their bones, and what do I got to do to get that to work? So basically the way a character is set up in the UDK is that there's a skeleton mesh, then there's an animation set, and then there's an animation tree, right? And the difference is that the skeletal mesh is the actual mesh itself, and that mesh contains all the bones for that object. And there's an animation set, which the set actually needs to have the exact, it's an animation, but it's associated to the bones. So the animation set is not only just the keyframes, but it's the keyframes of named bones in that animation set. So they have to match. A bone name in the animation set has to match the bone name on the skeletal mesh, and that's how it drives it. Okay? So the animation tree is the decision tree of how to run those animation sequences. It will say, all right, now I've got my animation set of a ton of animations. When do I play them? You know, if you just drop it in the world, you can pick one like I did. But if it's a player controller or pawn driving the character, well, which animation do I play when? Right? So the animation tree is a whole decision tree of when I'm pressing forward, I'm moving forward, play the run animation. If I turn left, play the turning animation. If I, you know what I mean? So that's how it drives all those different animations. And it's pretty complicated stuff in there. You can do some pretty neat things like change the animation based off the speed of the character, change it if I'm falling from the sky, change it if I get onto a vehicle. And you can have all kinds of, it's almost like Kismet, but Kismet for animation. So in this case, it's like, oh man, I got to match all these bones. How am I going to do this? And you know, I want to have some things that Unreal doesn't have. You know, I want to have some things. You know, so but I still need to match the bones. And the good thing is you can have more bones or less bones than the animation, but you know, so that it will only play back the bones that it has. It's got to have the same root bone. I think that's the one. That's the only requirement really. But after that is if the bone doesn't exist, it doesn't play it. So you can have skeletons with more bones than your animation has. So you can have different sets of animations for different purposes. Like you can use the same animation set with a guy with shoulder pads and maybe a ponytail, but it won't do anything to those bones, right? And then you can have, if they don't exist. So you can actually have animation with the ponytail moving. If the character has it, it'll move it. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So that's what's pretty cool. So here, actually on the UDN side, which is nice, they actually have their Gears of War. I think it was a Gears of War character or maybe an Unreal character. Maybe it's an Unreal character that has the whole skeleton in there. So you can use that skeleton and modify it. But they've got like big boots and like her ankle is not in the right position for a character. And you're like, ah, crap, okay, how am I going to do this? So the cool thing is you can actually bind skeletons to skeletons, right? So in this case, I wanted to use their bone names, but then have a different, but use biped to drive the animation, then add extra bones. So there's actually two skeletons on this character. There's the biped skeleton, which is so I can use biped. I like using biped for motion capture, for animating the character easily. Then I have a whole nother set of bones that matches the names of the Unreal bones. And the reason why I wanted to match the names of Unreal bones is because I wanted to use their animations. I wanted to steal their animations for all this stuff. I don't want to redo all their running and turning and just for this test, right? So by having the same bin names, I can actually use their animations and add to it instead of replacing everything from scratch. So there's actually two skeletons here. There's the whole biped tree. So I've got the whole biped tree in here, which is biped, and then a whole other set of bones that are constrained to the biped bones. So I can do things real easy, like making bigger bones, scale them, add extra bones, and associate them to the biped bone, and create a whole new skeleton, but still use their animation. It's a pretty wild approach. Like for example, with this, if I go pick the biped here, for example, you can do some pretty fun stuff, right? So if I go to motion here, I'll show you a little extreme what you can do with the obviously with the two together. So here I added a little hip hop to my soldier character here because I got biped driving both bone sets there. So it's got biped as the root, and it's got the second skeleton, which is constrained to that one. So anyway, you get the idea. You can do some pretty cool stuff with motion capture pretty easily now, because with regular bone names, it would be much harder to kind of get all that right, you know, because of extra bones and stuff. But if I just attach it to biped and then attach that skeleton to the biped, you can do some pretty cool stuff. But in this case, I want to do a run cycle. So I'll go back to the regular skin character first, and then, but now I got these two sets of bones. How is Unreal going to handle this? So there's some interesting things that when an object is skinned to another object, Unreal knows not to bring that in as an object, right? It knows it's a bone at that point. But now I've got two sets of bones, one's skin and one's not. So that means that those other set of bones are going to come in as objects. It's going to think they're objects. So you can't have the two skeletons together at the end. You can have them for your setup and creating your animation, but when you're done, take the second set of bones, bake all the keyframes, and delete the biped on my export process. Now, of course, you can make that a script, boop, hit a button, boop, and then, it's done, and you can export it, right? But I'm going to show you manually how you do that. So here I've got the again the biped and the other animation. Because if I delete the biped right now, the other skeleton's going to go boop, T-pose. I got nothing to drive it, so I need to take all that animation and bake it into keyframes onto that skeleton. So I'm going to go to the second, the non-biped skeleton, and go to trajectories. And I'm going to bake out, I think this is 25 frames. I'm going to take 25 samples. It's a run cycle. So actually look at it here. Just created a run cycle that I'm going to use and bring into Unreal. So I'm going to take out that whole root. Actually, I need to get all the bones. So I'll do select children. I got everything? Okay, I do. And I'm going to collapse all those keyframes onto those bones. So now they're collapsed onto those bones. Now if I go back and delete the biped, see if I got my select children on here. I do, oops. And get rid of all my BIP stuff. Okay, so now I've got no more biped, but it's still playing the animation because I baked everything onto those bones specifically. Okay, so now I'm going to actually export this out. So I'm going to say export as the soldier run here. Soldier export, and I'll just name it here. And I want to export, yes, I want to export my animations, the mesh. Actually, in this case, well, I'm going to export the animation, but when I import it, I'm not going to import the animation because I can do them as two separate pieces. Or actually, for this one, I'll import the animation because there's only one. But for the weapon, I'll show you how to do it if you have multiple animations. So I'll export that out. Now if I go to the UDK and go import soldier and bring that guy in, I can say, I'll say new soldier package, soldier 7. That's how many times I've made this guy today, 7. And so I'll bring in the skeletal mesh, I'll bring in the import the animation, sure. I want the bones to match up to T-pose. So that'll actually make sure that the bones themselves actually match the first frame of the animation instead of they'll be linked up. And then I want to bring in the materials and textures, yes, and say OK. The cool thing is, actually, when you do this and you get all the materials and animations and textures, if you import it again, it's going to find out what's different and not import everything again. So that's nice because the first time it takes, take a minute to do it. But then if I do it again, it'll be like that because I'll know that nothing changed. So it is good that way. All right, so now I'm actually bringing over again the scale mesh, an animation set, all the textures, and the material all pre-assigned. I think I had one extra object there I should have deleted, but we'll see. All right, so now I can load up my character here. Looks pretty cool. Got the texture on there, it's shadowing nicely. And if I play the animation, there's nothing on it yet because I need to assign it. So if I go to pick that Soldier Run 7, I think it was called, or it might be called B Root. It's probably the name of the animation. There he goes. So now he's got the running animation running inside here. Now again, what's cool, since I use the same bone names, I can go use all the Unreal animations. Well, I should. Let's see. So I'll go here, and if I pick the, let's say, animation human base male, looks like it's working so far here. So if I pick the different animations from Unreal, it will actually match up that same character. So now I can easily replace the Unreal character with my own character, right? I think there's some cool ones at the bottom here. Slit throat, there you go. There you go. So it's nice. I can easily replace that character with my own. But also, it means I can also add my own animations on top of those original UDK animations. So that's pretty much it. I can show you a little bit about the animation tree, which is kind of cool too. So if you look at the actual UDK, I'll just show you just a little bit of the animation tree, just to show you what that really means, that thing. It's pretty cool.
Do you have two anim sets associated with one skeleton mesh?
Yeah, so what you do, actually that's what I should tell you that too. So in this particular case, I wanted classes. I wanted to actually have each character be its own class instead of just randomly spawning them. So you use the family info. So family info is where you define, there's a script in there called the UT family info, it's called, and derived off that. And in the family info, you can set a skeletal mesh for that character. So you can set for that family, I want to spawn that. So if I want to use Kismet, because Kismet spawn this particular family, you can spawn a different family info. This we call family info soldier, and it has that soldier in it, pointing to the skeletal mesh and an animation set and the material. But what's cool is also, I'll show you the next one, you can also set arms for it too. So I'm going to have another mesh with the weapon system. I'm going to have the character now it's replaced in Unreal, but they have their weapon in Unreal that's only the gun and no arms, right? And I think there's one weapon, I think a sniper rifle, that has some arms in it, but so the base code is in there. But in the family info, you can also set the arm for the weapon. And I'll explain how we use that in a minute. But yeah, so this guy's in there, and then the animation tree under the animation, the CH animation human, you can sit, oh, that's the animation set, never mind. All animation tree, human. So the animation tree is pretty cool because it allows you to, I hope you'll see this well up on the screen, but this allows you to get you any of the bones that I had in that, that animation, you can get to. So if I actually go to the mesh, I can set the preview mesh to the guy I had. So I'll go here to preview mesh. Preview skeleton mesh is going to be, instead of Iron Guard, I want it to be the guy I just created, which was Soldier 7. And set that. So now I can see what my guy is going to look like in that animation tree. Now the animation tree is literally like, it's almost like Kismet. So it says for the animation of this character, now you get access to all the bones, and you can add basically a scale control node attached to any of the bones. So you can expose more or less bones and do pretty cool things. So there's extra bones on there, for example, like where the gun is held. So I can have an animation node that actually puts IK on it and recoils the gun. So they can do some stuff like that. But for the just complete animation set, you can see there's on the animation of the entire skeleton, you can go through this whole tree here. And this tree basically, it kind of goes from, I like to look at it, it goes from like right all the way left into the input, right? So you can set that, well, it's running, but if I change states, you can change things along the way. But you can change, like for example, am I flying, yes or no? Am I driving, yes or no? And the neat thing is these little preview bar here, you can set, am I flying or driving, right? So it will actually change the tree based off that. So I'm going to go to, I am flying, and I can say the flying direction, right? And I can change the little box and preview how it's flying here. You can do, for example, back to not flying. You can go here and say, well, again, here's the aiming for the character. How am I aiming my weapon, right? Which direction is it? The aiming node is actually pretty complicated, but the animation node, you can actually set in your animation position 6, I think it's 6 or 9, 9 points. It's up, down, left, right, and then I think all the corners too. So was that 3, 6, 9? So there's in the center. So there's 9 positions you set the extremes of how your character can turn. And then this node is actually one of the few nodes that took me forever to figure this out. This is ridiculous. I don't know why there's not some special color highlighting thing on this thing, but it's one of the very few nodes you can double click on, and it shows this thing, a whole other box. Like, forever, I was like, what the hell? Because if you go and delete the animations for these aiming nodes, it doesn't do anything, right? I'm like, why? They got these animations in here that have the positions of the 6. If I delete them, the animation node still works. Why is that? I couldn't figure that out. So anyway, it shows those 6 positions. It's because the animation gets sucked into this thing and set as numbers. So you do that as a baking process to kind of bake these kind of positionals into this aiming node. But and you can have profiles of each node. Like I can say, well, I aim differently if I'm holding a Stinger missile, you know. So you can have profiles set for each of the aiming on it. So it's pretty cool though. It's very cool. It just took a long time to kind of figure that one out. Then you have your states. Am I walking? Am I falling? So I'm going to set it to walking. So now if you go back to your aim, you can see, okay, there's all my aims for this guy. Nothing's going through anything. That's cool. And then by posture, am I running or crouching? I'm crouched. So it really allows you to see the whole process and all the animations. And at the end, you'll notice it says like run, forward, riff, right? And I was like, oh, they're picking one animation? You know, like what if I'm using a rocket launcher? What if I'm picking something else? You know, where do I put all the animations in here, right? So the actual, you see run forward, it actually has states. Even though it says riff there, if you look down there, it says UDK node sequence weapon, the forward riff, forward DPI, dual pistols. It actually uses each of those based off the weapon. The weapon itself has a enum in it, like EWT underscore type of weapon, right? And if you set that, it will set there that because UT blend by type, you'll go look at the weapon. What weapon am I holding? Okay, I'm going to play this animation. So that's actually set in the weapon itself. So that's how you can get to this stuff and kind of have different animations for different weapons. So I'm going to show you real quick here another weapon. I'm going to kill this for a minute. Yes. I'll just wipe out all this stuff, all these things I just loaded and changed. So next thing I'm going to do here is, well, now I want to do a weapon. But I want to, let's see here, RPG, pretty sure it was this one. So here I've got a first-person weapon that I want to use in the game. But I want to do something, you know, I can easily go and put this weapon in game, and then, you know, then I've got this one weapon that's used with the set of arms on. So it's basically let me zoom out and show you more what this is here. It's basically an RPG, right? And it's got a skeleton set up for the RPG itself and the bones that are associated to that weapon. Now, normally a UT weapon is just like a root bone and maybe one other bone for the animation of the weapon. But in this case, I want arms. I want first-person arms to hold this thing, right? But if I do it like this, I was like, shoot, what am I going to do? If I do it like this, then my characters always have the same set of arms. If anyone who picks up that weapon is going to have those arms in it, right? So how am I going to do that? It's like, well, should I? Well, that makes sense. I'll make the weapon have one animation with its own skeleton, and I'll make the arms have their own animation with the bones in it, and I'll bring them together in Max, maybe delete the top one and export that, and delete the bottom one, export that, and that should work. So I did that, and then the hands are holding the weapon, and you know everything's all optimized, and the hands start wiggling from the weapon. Like, what the hell's going on there? Well, that's because they both have their own animation compression. So it means they're all going to both interpolate themselves differently. Right? So my fingers are going to go to the weapon, come off the weapon, and they're not going to be exactly on the weapon. That's a problem. So I said, oh, I got it. Skeleton mesh. The weapon will have the bones for the arm, but there'll be no arm. Right? So I'll take the skeleton mesh, I'll export the arms like this with the bones in them, and then I'll have in the game, I'll load the weapon up with all the bones for the arms, but have no arm mesh on it, and then do an attachment of the arms to that weapon, which will then be T-posed with the weapon, but then say use the animation set of the weapon. Hands touch, you know, grab the weapon. And they'll be perfectly locked, because if I compress them, it's compressing the whole thing as a whole, right? So that means anyone who picks up a weapon will get the arms of the character, because the character arms will be associated with the character, not the weapon. So no matter who picks them up, I'll pick up the weapon, it'll switch those arms to those bones, and I'm good. Right? So that's one way you can do it, and it's a pretty cool way to have weapons that are pick upable on the ground. So, but now I got this, I've got this weapon, I've got these bones on the arms. I'm gonna need to get a lot of animations in here, and I can't just export this as one animation. It'll be 240 frames of one clip. I need to actually go in here and make a bunch of different clips for weapon equip, weapon fire, weapon zoom fire, weapon zoom idle, just a ton of different animations for the weapon itself when you're playing. So in this case, you do things a bit differently. You would set up the weapon itself as a file, and then you'll have your exported skeletal mesh. But then you're actually going to make an XREF of that. So now I'm going to make a whole other file, max file, that externally references that gun and the bones, and make little max files of all the animations, right? So it allows you to have the external reference of the weapon, but then make animations for each of the pieces. So I'm going to export this this out here. But I'm going to delete the arms for a minute. Well, I'll show you with the arms first, and then I can always do that. Actually, you know what? I might be able to show that. I was thinking if I can show that real time in the editor, and I think I can. So let me delete that. Delete the arms. So now just the bones. Look at it again. Oops. Let me get all these arms here. Arms deleted. Okay. So now I have. I hope I deleted the right thing before then. Let me just make sure I get the arms. Okay. Oh, there were gloves. Okay, that's what it was. Gloves. Get rid of the gloves. Okay. So now I've got just the RPG with no hands, but the bones for the hands that are there. And I'll export that out, and I'll call that RPG export. I'll just call it 1P RPG base or something. I don't know. And I'm going to export everything. I'm not going to. There's no animation on it, so I can turn off no animation. That's all good. Actually, no, I do want to do the animation because I want to get the skinning. And I'll say OK. And now if I go, let me launch the editor again here. So now I'll import so now I'm going to import it separately, two different pieces. I'm going to import the RPG first, and then I'm going to start importing animations separately. Because I want to name them specifically and have their own animation set and really control what it is. So if you do look at before we bring it in, if I show you what some of these animations look like. If you look at an animation for a weapon, it does have a lot of different animations you have for it. So you've got like weapon equip, so that's when it picks it up. Weapon fire, every time it fires. Weapon idle, when you're not doing anything. Weapon put down, when you're done. Weapon reload, sprint in, sprint loop. Now some of these things are not UDK specific, but we added some. But so for example, if you have a sprint in or sprint loop, you can actually have that whole sprinting thing going on. And then of course, weapon taunt is kind of cool. Because you can do whatever you want, right? You can make any animation you want and have it triggered, so you can make some crazy hand gestures, right? Shoot us, you can do whatever you want. So you can create some pretty fun stuff by linking that up to binding and stuff. Okay, so now I'm going to import my RPG. RPG, export, and let's see, I'll bring in his base. And I'm going to bring in the skeletal mesh. I'm going to bring in no animation. I don't need that. Reference pose is probably, it should be fine. Import materials and textures. That's good. Oops, wrong package. So I don't put it there. Call it something else. New RPG. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in the RPG. I think I'm thinking I'm just going to do this on the fly here, but I think I can, in the animation viewer, I can pick two meshes. I think that should work. So I'll be able to show you the arm in the animation viewer attached to the weapon. So I'll try that. So yeah, now I'm loading this animation. And so now I'll just do the opposite approach for the arms. I'd go delete the weapon and save out the, actually no, I wouldn't even do that. I would save out the T-pose of the arm with the same bone names in it, save that as its own mesh. And then for the animations, I'm saving all the animations of the weapon, all the weapon animations. That's all done on the weapon. But the arms would always just be a T-pose. Because the animation set's going to drive those bones anyway. All right, give me another second here. It's big textures. Any questions while I'm loading this? No? Come on. All right, good. But yeah, this is a good way in case, you know, you shoot somebody, steal their weapon, you've got your arms, not theirs. You know. All right. Come on, no questions? Come on, something. Not good? Yeah, so the family info was probably one of the best places I found to create, you know, create all your characters, and then you know, on the game mode itself, you can have tie it into scale form, have it pick, if I pick this image button, set this family as the family to load as my character, and so you can do some cool stuff. So now I've got my RPG here, but if I look at the actual bones of it, you see all the bones are there, right? And it's got all the bones of the arms, even though the arms aren't there. And I think if I actually go to extra mesh, I might be able to pick the arm itself. And there it is. So now the arm automatically associated itself with those bones because it's the same animation set. So those arms attached to the gun. Even though those arms by themselves are just like this, put the right bones in it. All right, so now I got those two loaded up. Now I can go pick the animation. Now I don't have an animation set yet, so I need to make an animation set, but now I've got my weapon. So here now I'd create a new animation set to associate with this weapon. I'll say new animation set and call it, that's fine, new RPG, same package. I'll call it RPG anim set. So now I've got, we picked the mesh to be the new RPG to show. Did I miss it? Where are you? I think it's called new RPG, right? RPG, I see one. That's not it, though. If anybody sees it, yell. 3P. Maybe I did just call it RPG. Well, so here's my RPG. And if I go to the animation set on it, the RPG animation set that I just created, it's blank. It's got nothing in it. So now I got to get all the animations in here from the files. So you'd actually name each of your Max files the name of the animation you want to call it, right? So if I created a RPG, so I call it weapon reload, weapon fire, it'll actually bring in that name. But you don't have to do it that way because you want to rename it in here. So I like naming it in here instead because I can name my Max files whatever I want. So I'm going to say file import FBX animation. And I'll pick my RPG fire or even equip. I'll do equip. And missing a track. Oh, one thing I might have forgot here. Which is good because then I get to show you one thing that you've got to do. In the Max file here, oh, I know why. Okay, give me 1 minute. I didn't import the RPG that I created. I imported the old one, I think. So let me delete this RPG. Delete force. So one thing I found out during this whole process too is spaces are not your friend, right? Because I had all kinds of spaces in my bone names, like base, space, bone. And FBX will actually add a dash in there, which is good. It gets rid of the spaces, it makes it consistent. But then the importer has some quirkiness. It tries to match up the bone names, and then it goes, they're not quite the same. Because again, when you input that animation, it's got to match that mesh, those bone names, at least the root, right? And that's what it's looking for. It says the root is not the same. So I'm just going to import that RPG again. I think it called it base. I think I imported the wrong one before. But so let's do RPG base. Okay. came in a little fast, but let's make sure. Animation set. That's what I was looking for before, RPG base, but I couldn't find it in this list.
You might need to save the package.
Yeah, okay, let me try that. Sure. Let me just save that. And I'll call it UDK game. I'll stick it in here. Content, I save it in the weapons folder. All right, good. Just save that out, and I think it was called new RPG. Let me just make sure real quick. Okay, so I'm just going to save this out. Give it a second. So I got all these high-res textures in here. Okay. And I think it was called, let's see. I'm still waiting. Yep. Oh, it's compressing all the textures now. All right, give it a minute. There you go. Okay, so it's still compressing? What is it doing here? Yeah, it's still compressing. Give it a minute. Yeah, 2048. Oops. I should have made it a little lower for this. But so yeah, 2048 textures for all this stuff with MIPS and all that. So, but yeah, so basically what I'm going to do is just create the animation set and import an animation from different files. So I can make different files for the different animation sets. I'll see if that shows my new 1P mesh now. 1P RPG. Oh, there it is. Sweet. Okay, good. All right, so there's my base. I look at the bone names. Okay, no spaces. That's good. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my animation set. Oh, I shouldn't have closed that. And then import from the FBX file. FBX, the fire. So boom, it loaded. That means good. My names are right for all that stuff. And now I can kind of play the fire animation, right? So it's kind of firing the weapon. It's called 1P. It came with the name of the file, so 1P RPG fire. And then I can just import more of them. From the second Max file, I'll import, FBX file, I'll get the equip. So now I've got my two animations. So now I've got the equip and the fire. And here I can just go to the animation sequence and rename them. All right, so I'm going to rename this to called weapon equip, and that'll match what Unreal wants by default. Of course, you can always name them anything you want in the code, but by default you can name them. And I'll name this to fire. So that's it. So now I've got my two animations, and you just keep going. You kind of build up your whole animation set for that weapon, and you're good to go. Now, one of the tricks that I like doing is making the animation set in a totally different package than the actual weapon itself and the textures, because of that saving. It's not even just saving. It's every time, like if you use something like Perforce or source control, you don't want to keep dumping a big package for everyone to download. So the thing is, you can separate the stuff out. You can separate animations in small files that if those are the things you're really going to be updating a lot, separate the package, right? Because then it saves it for everybody. So now I'll just show you what the real deal looks like, finalized. So I'll load up this thing where got some classes set up, different weapons, the RPG with all different animations in it, and I'll show you. I think I've got a taunt in there. Let's see. I don't know if I've got audio on the game up here. It's loading up. It's still loading. That's right. I don't need the audio too bad. But anyway, here's the. Oh, I'm not even plugged in. That's what it is, right? It's okay. I don't really need it. It's I don't even know where it is. That's right. You can hear it from my little laptop speakers. But anyway, so I've got my RPG now, and I've got my arms on it. So if I fire here, loads the new rocket in there. And now the cool thing about making the rocket disappear, it's just a trick. Got another bone on the end of the rocket, and then as soon as you move it out a couple of frames, and you just move the bone off the screen. All right, so basically, it goes boop, boop, disappears. Right. So it's actually coming back around, going back into his hand, smoke and mirrors. Where it gets tricky is third person. So as soon as you go in third person, a lot of times you'll see totally different animations in third person because you can't do the same tricks as easily. But you can do sometimes they'll just put in code mesh hiding and unhiding based off delays, and so they can actually fire it and then have him pick it out of his pocket or something and it appears in his hand and do it again. But most times, like even if you look at the high-end games like Battlefield 3, it doesn't even come off. It fires and it doesn't do anything, right? It's just on third person. In first person, it does, but because those tricks get complicated. Anyway, so there's the RPG, and you can do all kinds of fun, different animations in it. There it is, attached in third person. So, all right. Okay, anybody have any questions? I think I'm pretty much wrapped up here. I was going to do the buggy again, but I think you guys saw it yesterday. So, but I can show you a couple more fun little trinkets in here that were made with skeletal meshes and the same setup. So, for example, here's a little fun little helicopter here, like a kind of gyro chopper. I don't know how well I can fly on this laptop here, but. So you can set your different cameras and stuff, and you get the idea. You just get tons of little vehicle examples. Ditch. So some other cool things you can do too is like we noticed that vehicle actually broke into pieces. Is that you set up the same mesh. You take that same skeletal mesh and you can create just physics assets for them. So you bring in the skeletal mesh, you put all the bones on everything, and then you can do some cool stuff like let me go to this vehicle. I think it was called a little slide here. So there's kind of a destroyed state on it, right? And the cool thing is if you create you create the mesh and you put all the bones on it like you had, and you skin them the way you want. And then in the physics asset, so it's not really driving it with any kind of animation or anything, you can just break them off. So if I look at the physics of this asset, I think that's actually the wrong one. Bring in the destroyed one. What's cool here is that, so these are all the bones that are set up in the skeletal mesh. But in this case, I created a whole new skeletal mesh called destroyed. And for each bone, I put a bounding box around it based on the bone itself. And then on the bone, you can actually set that they're breakable, right? So if you click on this bone object itself, and I think it's under editing mode here, there is a way to adjust. Let me just see if I can get to it here. There it goes. Angular breaking. So you can say if it's, or linear breaking. So if it's breakable and you set a really small parameter, as soon as it hits the ground, it breaks off. So if you have like blades that are spinning and it goes to destroyed state, as soon as the blade hits the ground, it'll break off and go flying, and the wheels will fall off and roll. And so it's cool. You can set a whole destroyed state for this stuff. So if you look at this car in here, for example, it's set up so that if I shoot it, the doors will fall off, the tires will fall off, and all kinds of stuff. So if I go back to that kind of RPG, and go here and I just destroy this car, which is pretty cool, a little Charger-like car. But if I destroy it, one more, you see all the pieces kind of broke off. There's the gun that was on the top, and there's one of the wheels, another wheel kind of hanging off. And that one's kind of not constrained right, but you get the idea. That's pretty cool. All right, cool. Thank you, guys. It was fun. Have any questions? Come grab me afterwards. Thank you.